Good afternoon and a warm welcome to this year's Oxford Real Farming Conference online. Bienvenue, willkommen, welcome and croeso. I'm calling in from West Wales. I'm your host, Phil Moore, part of the communications team of the Ecological Land Co-op and a budding market gardener. So we're talking about land and how to get it. We're delighted to invite 4 speakers from across Western Europe who all have the same aim, getting access to land. Each are going to talk about it in their own ways, and I think there'll be some really interesting overlaps and divergences, which I hope will both be instructive and informative for those who are wanting to start their own access to land projects. As the US humorist and writer Mark Twain quipped, "Buy land, they aren't making it anymore." So I'm going to introduce each speaker individually. Each of them will speak for about 10 minutes. Please put your questions in the chat box, and we'll have a look at them, and hopefully we'll bunch some of them up that are themed together, and we'll hopefully be able to get through some of them. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Petra Tas from De Landgenoten, which means countrymen, and they access agricultural land for organic farms in Flanders. Over to you, Petra.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the Landgenoten. I will start my presentation. Do you see it? Phil, can you confirm that the presentation is seen?
We can't see it just yet.
Okay, just a second.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Okay. Luckily, my intro was very short, so there's plenty of time. Don't worry.
I don't seem to get. I cannot go back to Zoom to share my screen.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, thank you. It should work, right? Okay, so thank you for this opportunity. I will present the Landgenoten, which is an organization that is supporting organic farming in Flanders, so in the northern part of Belgium, by purchasing farmland and renting it out at very decent prices to organic farmers. We do this because we would like to support organic farming, but also because we would like to protect soil fertility that is built up. And this is interesting to see. We were founded in 2014 by 3 farms and 14 organizations. And these organizations were in fact very different from scope, from core business. They are into nature conservation, into gathering ecological gardeners, into fair trade products promoting. But they found each other in the goal that organic farmers should be helped in finding farmland in Flanders, and that's why they started the Landgenoten. And for us, that was a very good thing, because several of those organizations are very famous in Flanders, and if you are asking for money, then it's easy to have this trustworthy image from the start on. So if you would like to start an initiative like this, then I think it's very important to find partners. Just a quick view, which are the issues in Flanders. Farmland is very, very expensive. It goes up to 60,000 euros per hectare, or sometimes even double. And that is about twice or even 5 times the price, the productive value of farmland, which means that it is impossible for a farmer to earn this farmland during his career, his or her career. And I've quickly counted it in pounds and acres, and then it means like 50,000 pounds for 2.5 acres to 108,000 pounds for 2.5 acres. So it's really much. What we see is that small farmers are losing space. Farmers are getting bigger and more intensive. And in Flanders, we only have 1.5% of organic farmland, which is very few. And an important part of the farmland in Flanders is actually used for export. Only 70% of the farmland, only 30% of the farmland that is used by the farmer is actually owned by the farmer. And it's amazing to see that 50% of the farmland is not even used for farming. In some regions, it goes up to 30%, so it's not really protected. A lot of people are trying to buy farmland, and that makes that for a new farmer, it's almost impossible to find farmland and to buy it, because a new farmer will not have the financial means or will not get a bank loan. And he or she will not have the network to know where there is farmland. But also existing farmers do find a lot of difficulties. So how do we help them? In fact, we are bringing together the budget to buy farmlands. We do that by inviting people to become shareholder. We have now more than 1,100 shareholders of the cooperative. And we also ask for gifts. We are a cooperative and a foundation, and so the gifts go to the foundation. And we have like 200 people who are regularly giving money. And with this money, we buy farmlands and rent it out to farmers with a career-long agreement. So the certainty for the land is very big. And we rent it out at very decent prices. We only have one condition, and that is that the farmer asks for an organic certification body to certify the farmland as organic. We have no voice in the management of the farm, so the farmer is autonomous, and we find that very important. But we do invite the farmer to connect with the local community, and that can be in the way that he or she likes it. It can be through direct sales or farm classes, or by providing work to disabled people, for example. And what we see is that often the people that helped to finance the farmlands, that they become customers of the farmer. Now, how do we do it precisely? We usually start with the farmer, so that that's the person who starts the process, in fact. And both new and established farmers can apply a request to work on the landgenotengrond farmland. We ask the farmers to fill in a form in order to get to know their education, their experience, also to get to know a first idea of the kind of farm that will be developed. And we also want to know how they feel about not owning the farmland themselves, because farmland often is seen as a way to have a retirement payment at the end of a long career. And then we invite new farmers to come and present their business plan. And in case of an existing farmer, we go visit the farm ourselves. If the farmer is approved, then we start looking for farmland. Sometimes we do it the other way around. Sometimes we get an opportunity to buy farmlands, and then we go looking for a farmer. But that is often very difficult because we don't have much time. Usually the farmland needs to be sold very quickly, but we will not buy farmland if we don't have a farmer. And now, when we can buy a farmland, then there's a very exciting part that starts. That's the crowdfunding campaign. So we always start a local campaign with the face and the story of the farmer as one of our major assets. It's a very personal story that we bring. And that also means that we ask a lot from the farmer, but because we ask him or her to really to support this crowdfunding. And it works rather well. So shareholders like this kind of personal stories. But on the other hand, there are quite a lot of farmers who don't like to be in the spotlight like this, and who sometimes feel like this campaign is kind of begging. So we are trying to find volunteers to help us crowdfunding. Then just to, oh, my time is almost done. Just very quickly, we support at this moment 9 farms with 33 hectares. Some of them are CSA farms, vegetable farms, but we also have dairy goats, fruits and flowers. And then very interesting for all those who would like to start, it's something similar. Our business model at this moment is not profitable because the farmland is so expensive and we rent it out at so small pricing that we need to find other solutions. So we have to try to get as quick as possible 100 hectares to at least be able to pay a part-time employee. And then we also give paid advice, and we are looking for grants and other projects in which we can sell our knowledge. And we also work with volunteers who help us representing us on different occasions. They help us find money. They help us organizing events like General Assembly, for example. And in the future, we would like to engage volunteers to help us find farmland and to help passing the farm of a retiring farmer to the new generation. So that was very, very quickly how we are working. And if you allow me, I would like to just very fast explain or bring into the spotlights a publication that we made together with other organizations in Europe. It's the Access to Land network that has written this, and it's in fact a sort of beginner's guide for people who would like to start an organization to support farmers. The first chapter is about why is there so much pressure on farmland and what kind of solutions are there possible, and there are many solutions, so it's very inspiring to read these examples. The second one is how to start from scratch, which you can skip easily if you already have an organization, but which is very interesting if you want to start from nothing. And then in the third part, that's the interesting part, we explain how you can work with farmers, how you work with private landowners, with public landowners, how to engage citizens. And there's a lot of testimonies in it, which are very useful. And then we present the Access to Land network. So if you would like to start this, here's really a great bunch of experience of real life examples and insights. So you can find it on accesstoland.eu resources reports. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Petra. And I think that was a really good point about your specific project, about the importance of partners. So moving on, next we have Tanguy Martin from Terre de Lion in France. They're a nationwide citizen movement founded in 2003, and today they own 219 farms. So over to you, Tanguy, and I believe we have interpretation from French to English.
Okay, bonjour à...
Hello, everyone. Thank you to the interpreter who is going to translate my words. I hope you can hear me. So, a quick presentation of the citizens movement Terre de Lion, for which I work in France. I hope that you will not be a recall, because it's very close to what Petra has just told you, because we work, of course, together, and we've already had lots of exchanges. And so let's start from the French context, which is slightly different from the Flemish context, even though there are some similarities. The concentration of agricultural land. We have farms that are more and more big and less farms, like everywhere else in Europe. We have an agriculture that requires important inputs and finance for buying the land, but not just for the land. Also the necessity to invest to take up credits every time you need to start a new agricultural level. So the necessity to then pay back these loans, which forces you basically to go into intensive agriculture, which is bad for the environment. And of course, the drastic reduction of the number of farmers and farm workers. They're going back, minus 7,000 farm jobs in France in the last 10 years. This is a huge aspect. Next to that, we also have environmental problems. We have a loss of biodiversity, not in climate problems linked to agriculture. In some places, important social problems because of lack of revenue among farmers, and finally, the farmland is more and more expensive in France. So you haven't got, it's not at the same level as Flanders. We are 6,000 euros in hectare, so 10 times less than in Flanders, but it's still an important, it's growing continuously because we have new regulations, new laws that are very important in France that keep the land price down and the land rental, agricultural land rentals prices down. Nevertheless, depending on the regions, this can represent a huge part of the financing. Also, the question of the buildings can be very important, and that can cause problems even when the land is cheap, because the buildings on the land can be sold very expensively. And the last element of the context is that children of farmers do not necessarily want to become farmers anymore. So many people who want to become farmers today need to basically insert themselves into a territory and a network of people, which it's alien to them at the beginning. So this is another challenge, a social challenge. They need to basically insert themselves in the rural society. This is a problem in all types of farms. And also, of course, the fact that when the farmers get older, they want to sell their farm at profit because then it's their retirement scheme. So what do? Just like Petra has explained, we try to mobilize citizens and local stakeholders because land is a common good. It's not just the farming issue, even though the farmers play a central role, of course. We absolutely want to help people who want to become farmers, particularly people who are not coming from the rural background, to insert themselves in the rural territories. And that is also the main hurdle, the central hurdle, acquiring and managing farmland in order to rent them to farmers and to make money with this investment, also allow the use of this agricultural use of this land and agricultural and organic agriculture. So that's why we have organic conditions in our rental agreements. I'm sorry, Phil, I haven't got the dialogue screen, so if you need to tell me if I'm running over time, just raise two fingers, not one, two, Phil. If it's when you got 2 minutes left. So what helped us get started was a increased interest by the citizens in agriculture and arable land, which kind of had gone down in the 1980s with the land struggles, in particularly for airport things like in Nantes, Notre-Dame-des-Landes, and also the new debate on the environmental limits of technology. So the land came back to the core of the debate, and a thematic approach. We didn't ask ourselves, are we going to evict people in order to help access to lands? We're not going to do a revolution. We're going to say, what can we do right now in the existing conditions in order to get land and give it to farmers? We were lucky because we managed to benefit from fiscal advantages, and we launched our first call for social investment the day Lehman Brothers went bust. So that basically was a good argument for us, because we told people, give you savings some meanings to your investment, make meaningful investments. We haven't got a legal solution that allows us to act in a single manner in France. because French law is absolutely not adapted to the collectivization of lands or the preservation of environment, not meant for that. So we had to build ourselves on 3 pillars. The first one is non-for-profits that are based in each region, and they can mobilize the citizens that are going to work on the ground, call the farmers, find land, and they provide democratic legitimacy to our actions. The second tool, as it was presented, a incorporated society that sells shares to buy and rent land. This is usually, these shareholders are usually citizens that invest small amounts. We have lots of small stakeholders in the solidarity economy because there is no profitability, there is no dividends for this placement, but it's not a gift. It allows them to participate. If they need to get their money back, they can sell their shares and they can participate in the decisions. It allows us to raise a significant number of funds, but we also have a call for donations. So we have a foundation that receives donation and buys land, particularly, or sometimes even people donating land, and when we inherit land from people, that allows us to have also stability in the French institutional landscape. What has allowed us since 2003 and 2007, since we're buying farms, to be mobilized with more than 33,000 citizens, and we raised in social shares 90 million euros and 9 million euros in donations that allowed us to help 350 farmers to access the land. And we even 260 farms now, not 200, and to buy 6,000 hectares for organic farming. So our counseling activity for acquisitions, we help people access the land, and we also work with the local authorities. So what has allowed us how do we work today is the fact that we bring everyone around the same table. We rely on an important network of volunteers. We have 80 employees, but over 1,000 volunteers, and the possibility to mix public funds and private funds in our system, even though this dependency on public funds can sometimes be a hurdle. So it's good to mutualize the revenue streams. So in terms of acquisitions by the company, we have a communication policy that is fairly efficient, and that is very important to be able to move forward on that. The model that is also, it's not the shareholders, the capital shareholders that use, it's the citizens and the volunteers that have most voices in the decision making. It's not because you've got more shares that your voice is more, counts more. No, it's a partnership in a biological ecosystem. I think I'm run out of time, Phil. I tried to quick finish, but the hurdle is, as Petra said, we don't make much money managing. So we try to be very lean in order to manage to function. Also, the donation is what allows us to live. Sometimes we have people just donating a couple of euros and then they commit, and they're also going to be volunteers. And that's also a strategy of mobilizing people, and if people want to help us out. That was it. Thank you. And I'll be ready to answer any questions you might want to ask me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tanguy, and thank you to Gregor for the translation. That was very rich in detail, and I very much appreciated the principles that land is a common good and meaningful investment. I think they're really good points. So moving on, next we're going to have Oli Rodker, who is the co-founder, director and site development director for the Ecological Land Co-op. The ELC works to create low-impact smallholdings for ecological agriculture in England and Wales. Oli, please.
Hello, everybody. Afternoon from London. I'm going to be working with Lauren on the slides and the screen sharing, so I'll just be prompting her. So hopefully that will follow for everybody. It's great to be here with the others from Europe, and it's interesting already to hear the similarities. The first slide, Lauren. The context in the UK, again, I think some very clear themes, the concentration of land. Here we have a very unequal land ownership ratio. We have very high prices, although interesting to see the prices in Flanders, we're not quite at your levels of financialization yet. And a lot of pressure on land for non-farming uses, and the difficulty, obviously the huge difficulty of covering the costs of land from farming incomes, which are being driven down as farms become concentrated, smaller numbers of farmers. I think in the UK, we also have a lot of tenant farmers on other people's holdings, and that one of the main impacts of that is to make it difficult to plan for the long term. And I guess long-term planning is what we need if we're going to have a sensible land use strategy, because land works in ecological cycles, not in the cycles of pounds. Next, please. The ELC is a fairly small cooperative, again, not as big as Ted de Liens, bigger than we were. We've been going for about 12 years. We have 5 sites around the country. We have 7 farmers sort of currently producing, and the rest of our sites and farms are in the development phase. So we have a number of sites that are currently going through the process of getting permission for people to farm there. As you can see from the slide, our vision is a living, working countryside with people back on the land, and farm businesses that are growing healthy food that are benefiting people and regenerating the natural environment. Next. Our mission is creating small clusters of farms that can work together, help each other, hopefully in synergistic businesses. We want to show that we can use all grades of land for productivity, for useful ecological businesses. We protect our land for the long term. We offer 150-year leases. And in addition to the practical work of setting up the farms, we undertake as much research and policy involvement as we possibly can. Obviously, nobody pays us to do that work, so it's difficult to fit it in a lean social enterprise business model. Next, please. So a very brief run through of how we work and our model is that we raise money. We raise money through ethical investment and shares. We purchase land. Unlike others, we purchase land and then find farmers to go on it. But I think there's a good case for us to try and start to work the other way around, and actually to start with people and look for land that suits them. But so far, our model has been to buy land and then look for people. We design our cluster of farms. We obtain planning permission. We pass on only the cost, so we keep the price down as low as we possibly can. We recruit the people through an application process and then monitor the sites over the next few years to make sure they're fulfilling the objectives, the social and environmental and economic objectives. Next. So this slide just briefly looks at the finance that we've raised so far. We've run 3 major community share offers, which in total have raised over £1 million. We have 444 members. We have some friendly loan finance deals with supportive organisations, and in addition, we get grants to help cover particular project costs or just to help bring the cost down wherever we can. Next, please. And next. So what we offer to potential farmers is hopefully a good deal on getting access to farming opportunities. We pass on the minimum possible costs that we can whilst maintaining our own financial viability. We do infrastructure, we provide building access. So we do a little bit of preliminary work on as we buy mainly greenfield sites, bare field sites, and then we offer support for people as we go forward and as they develop their businesses. And hopefully as we build an organisation, that there is more mutual support and collaboration available for people. Next, please. Briefly, our application process can take quite a while, but while we go through the planning process and do the work on the site, the length of the process is governed by two factors: the experience of the people applying and their suitability, and the amount of availability of our sites. So at the moment, as I said, we have 5 sites. Only one of those has vacancies, as it were. We have sort of pre-agreed some of the holdings on our sites, even though we don't yet have permission from the local authorities to develop the farms. And in terms of the suitability of people, we look for previous experience, really understanding and knowing the aspects of their business plan, that they understand what is involved in a fairly low impact living experience, and sort of living in harmony with the ecology, and that they can work together in a cooperative, and obviously that they have the finance. Next, please. Planning policy for people not in the UK, it's particularly relevant to note that we have quite a complicated and well, planning policy is a barrier base. It's one of the 3 key barriers, I would say, for people taking on new farms, together with affordability and the difficulties of accessing land. You have to demonstrate various things to get permission to live on your farm, and that is known as functional need, where you have to show that you have to live there, that your farm needs your work all the time, and that you are financially viable, so you have a robust business model. Now in Wales, in the last few years, they have a new policy there called the One Planet Development. It only applies in Wales. It's really geared around self-sufficiency and low impact living, but it's possible for ELC to work within that. And we have one site in Wales where we are going through the process of trying to get permission within that policy. And we're waiting to see the outcome of that. Next, please. Just following some photos of some of our different sites. We'll go through them fairly quickly. This is the first one was Arlington in Sussex. These are barefield sites before we started work. Some of the different sites here, some pictures of the work that we do to put in the gateway, a preliminary building, a barn with solar panels for renewable electricity generation, a track depending on the layout of the site. This is an aerial shot of the first field we saw after a year of development. So the barn there towards the right of the picture, and sort of 2 farms developing there with plastic being used to mulch out areas. As a part of the planning situation is that we have a 5-year temporary permission to begin with, where we have to prove the model. So there's a lot of pressure to get things going fast, which doesn't always work with some of the other restrictions we have. But so people have to get off to a fast start and mulch out areas of ground for the market gardens. Here's some tree planting that we do on our sites for shelter belts. Obviously, all the reasons for planting shelter and trees. And the next few pictures just of work beginning on some of the farms. These are some of our farmers. I won't go through them individually in case they're all listening to save them. Again, more pictures of our farms. And next. This is a picture of Green and Reach in Devon. It was the first site we bought 6 years ago. Here's some of the produce and some of the animals. And lastly, just to say that having got the permission and having the farms established, we then have to do a monitoring process. So we have to show that the farms are living up to expectations in terms of the business, in terms of the social, economic, ecological impact. We have a 150-year lease. It covers various things around making sure people are there doing agricultural work, that they're working within ecological parameters, that buildings are reversible. And we also have an affordability clause, which means that people can't sell on at the market rate. We have a sort of cap on the total price that people can sell on for. No one has sold on a farm yet, so it hasn't been put through the process, but that's there to stop the farms that people develop accruing too much value and then making it unaffordable to people who might follow on. And I believe that's it. So some contacts there at the bottom, and thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Oli. That was really interesting. And I think it's point I picked up on is all grades of land. I think demonstrating that ecological farming is not only eminently possible, but it's also economical. So I think that's a really good point. And also maybe for people who want to dig in deeper, the monitoring thing, it'd be interesting to see how the other projects, if monitoring is involved. And so welcome Johanna Saxler from Rigon Elvert AG. I probably mispronounced that, sorry Johanna. They are a citizen shareholder corporation in Germany with big ambitions to change for the good regional economies. Please, Johanna.
Thank you so much, and hello everybody from South Germany. So today I want to present you the concept and idea of Regionalwert AG Freiburg, this is how it's pronounced, and also give you a little heads up on our method of extended financial accounting for sustainable agricultural systems. So first of all, Regionalwert AG Freiburg, this translates to Regional Value Citizen Shareholder Company. It's pretty similar to some of the ideas that we've heard of before. And the idea is that citizens take responsibility for their region by becoming shareholders. Regionalwert AG invests equity capital in small and medium-sized enterprises along the entire value chain of the agricultural and food industry. So it's not only about farmland and farming, it's also about retailers and processors in the organic sector. Regionalwert AG organizes the cooperation of capital providers and partner companies for the development of a value-added region. So it's really about creating a whole network for the organic food sector in the region. To make this a little more clear, I hope, it's like I did a little picture on this. So citizens from Freiburg or from the region here invest money in form of shares to our company, to Regionalwert AG Freiburg. They again invest the money into farms or organic food stores in the region so that they can produce local organic food. And this is what the people here get back from the money that they invested, and a network is created. So the idea is really to have a very valuable region, and the social and ecological benefits are seen as a return on investment, not directly the money that you get back. So there's an extended view on profit that people get back. So the goals are to create regional food sovereignty, to have a social contract between companies and the society, to have a networking of the entire regional value chain, and to reveal sustainability services and risks of company management, which we do by some tools that we created. So the Regionalwert concept is spreading across Germany. We have at least 5 established Regionalwert AGs in Freiburg, and more regions are showing interest or are about to do the contract and also get Regionalwert AGs. These are the lighter green ones here. And first neighboring countries also show interest in the concept and are about to build up Regionalwert AGs. So the concept really is about to get bigger and bigger. And focusing on our little company here in Freiburg, we have a share capital of more than 4 million euros at the moment, with over 800 shareholders. And as I said before, the social, ecological, and regional economic services are seen as a return on investment. So people here are really convinced that there's more to profit than just money. So, and our fields of activity are a little wider. We have this value creation network that I just described. So we have agricultural producers that are connected with us. We have 3 organic markets. We have wholesalers, processes, and delivery services, which are all in the network, which work together and really create a very valuable value-added region here. But we also have some research projects at our company because we think that it's not enough to say that our shareholders see have a different view on profit and see social and ecological values as a return on investment. Actually, these values need to have financial values. And we also, with this idea, we also created sustainability assessment tools to assess sustainability. Also to give sustainability values financial values, not only a red and green assessment, but also with financial values. So what we really think is necessary to provide access to land for organic farms for the organic food sector is that social, ecological, and regional economic values and services need to be financially valued, because then it doesn't need concepts like we described, because this would be just economically feasible to do organic farming, because we do so many good services for nature, for the environment, for society, and so on. So this is why I quickly want to present you our method of extended accounting that we dream of, that we develop in our research projects. And to get to a extended accounting where sustainability actually plays a role, we say you need 4 steps. In the first step, we want to have a documentation of the social, ecological, and regional economic services, so of sustainability services, for which we gather a set of indicators, which are in the next step interpreted and evaluated. So we collect data, and then we set threshold values for what is sustainable and what not. And then the third step, this is the crucial step, I would say, is the monetization of the interpreted key figures of the indicators, so that in the end we could set up extended balance sheet with profit and loss calculation for annual accounts, so that the company balance sheets of organic farms would be including socio-ecological assets. For this, we take into account, for the evaluation and monetization of performance indicators, we take into account objectifiable threshold and target values from science and politics, the empirical status quo from average performance of other companies. We take into account subjective valuation of farmers and stakeholders. So we really ask farmers on their practical expert knowledge. And we also want to integrate society, the societal consensus. So to sum this up, we have I was quite short about the concept of the Regionalwelt AG, because I feel like it was Petra already talked a lot about the shareholding concept, and it's very similar to this. It's just that we also integrate the whole value chain. And I feel like by connecting urban citizens with agricultural production and processing, Regionalwelt AG, as well as other shareholding companies, make an important contribution to enabling food production and providing access to land. But on the long run, the whole system needs to change a little bit. So with our research projects and sustainability evaluation products, we want to make organic farming even more feasible and value its social, ecological, and regional economic services financially on the long run. And the whole concept is easily transferable to other regions and already is spreading throughout Germany and neighboring countries. And we are really happy to see that. And we hope that with our research, we can contribute to making organic farming more feasible on the long run anyway. That was it from my side. Thank you so much.
Ah, fantastic, Johanna. Thank you so much. That was really, really interesting. Now I understand why the logo's like that, the Value Creation Network. Very nice. And I really loved the photos as well of the judge with the fork, wedding the urban with the agriculture. That was very clever. No, that was really fascinating. And I think the idea of replicability is a really key thing in any kind of project, especially something like this where you're trying to get the purchase of citizens/consumers. And I think that nod to putting a financial ticket on things is important, because that's a reality we live in. So thank you all so much for the presentations. We've got some really good questions, and I'm going to try and go through as many of them as possible. So if all of you can keep your ears peeled, because some of them are for all of you, and some of the questions are directed at some of you individually. Right, so, there's quite a lot here. There's one for you, Petra, from, I believe, Angie Greenham. How much is tourism impacting on the uses of farmland in Flanders? I know there's been some interesting work there recently on tourism and localities or localhood.
I'm completely surprised with this question. So the impact of tourism on farmland? To be honest, I cannot give anything. I know there's much ado about tourism and local food, but that's about everything I can say about it. So I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's good to have a surprise question. Sorry you were given that kind of first question there. Okay, moving on. Johanna. So yeah, are the shareholders only private persons, or have companies also invested?
Most of them are private persons. No, they're all private persons.
Panelists, can you hear me okay? I've just learned that my microphone's a bit bad, so sorry to the audience out there if you can't hear me so well. Yeah, okay, that's better now. I've just had some intelligence from our fairies behind the scene. Okay, moving on. So a big question for all of you, and I'll just let the quickest person get in there first. What is the best way to set up a community-based farm? This is a question from Sue and Dennis in Leicestershire in the UK. We have much farmland, but on the whole, we do not think it's feasible to sell land. Ownership, shareholding is a problem. Can anyone speak to that?
I can start. I mean, it's very difficult without knowing the local context, isn't it? I mean, I think you've got to have a group of people that have got a shared vision. I think that's the most important starting block. It's very difficult to do these things if you're working entirely on your own. If you have a group of people, you can start finding out who your allies in the local area can be, whether there are existing farms and landowners that you can work with, existing trading networks, retail outlets. You've got to build a solid group that can be a bedrock to develop from. Obviously, there are so many difficult aspects, finance, but the actual farming, the political context in the UK is difficult. So, I mean, it'd be very difficult to give a long list of answers about how to deal with all of those things. But I mean, I think organizations like the ones that are here on this panel all would have information in for their local context and their country. If you contact people, or they would know cooperative development agencies we have in the UK. Maybe there are similar things on the continent that can help community groups and cooperatives.
Thank you, Oli. Anyone else want to speak to that? No worries if not. Okay. So I'm getting the sense that a lot of our crowd are coming from the UK currently, so it's kind of weighted towards maybe things that Oli, you might be able to respond to. So I'll ask another question. Yes. Well, this is, I guess, for everyone as well. But yeah. So do you have much experience of accessing public sector land? That's a question for everyone. Councils in the UK often own significant amounts of land. This is a question from Sarah Williams. Either scale or with good infrastructure. So a lot of land with, large amount or with good infrastructure. Is this an area of focus for any of the groups presenting? So accessing public sector land.
Yes, actually we do. we try to advise public authorities who have farmlands in order to manage the land sustainably. And we thought that it would be an interesting business model, but it's in fact quite difficult because politics take time, and there's a big farmers union which is not so very much keen for organic farming, which is also very politically active, and that makes that decision making is very slow. So we have, I think, 3 or 4 projects in which we are trying to get an organic farmer on public lands, but it's a challenge. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say in the UK we have had some sort of connections with local authorities, but again I think the word slow is comes to mind. It's incredibly slow work, and you can often spend a long time working with someone and then find that they leave the authority, or the chain of decision making disappears. It's very hard to get a person high enough up the hierarchy to sign off on these things. The local authorities in the UK are really strapped for cash, and they don't want to do things that are out of the ordinary box, that aren't their statutory requirements. Particularly in the last year, obviously, there's been very few people to even talk to about this kind of thing because it's not their sort of fundamental work already. So it requires somebody who usually doesn't exist, who I think who really wants to make this happen in local authorities. And we haven't found anybody yet, although we would like to. And we know there are people who are interested, but they don't have the resources to make it happen with us.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Oli, and thank you for echoing that. I think, yeah, that's an important point.
Can I add just a little thing? There are a few cities who are really into this organic farming, sustainable farming for local communities. And for example, Brussels is trying to do that. And there are other cities in Europe. And we have a local authority which is really excited about realizing this, then you can go for it. But it's very difficult to try to convince a local authority which is not convinced already himself. What Oli said, in fact, you really need someone convinced within the local authority, and then you can move on.
Great. Okay. Yeah. And I believe Tanguy said he's got some examples that he can share. Maybe that can be done. Yeah.
Ouais. Donc très rapidement.
Very quickly, once the political authorities have been convinced, things can work. Next to Marseille, in south of France, we had bought land with Tiers de Liens and or second land with and these rent were rented to the same farmer by Tiers de Liens and by the local authority on land. There was supposed to be a parking lot for a supermarket. And the second example is we work with the city of Nantes in west of France that is willing to devote 20% of the funds required for buying land to Tiers de Liens. Tiers de Liens would be buying land in the suburbs in order to install farmers that will provide food for the public institutions of the city. So if you have local authorities that are willing, you can have positive examples of cooperations with local authorities. Sorry, my sound is breaking up, says the interpreter.
That was good. No, yeah, thank you very much. Well, we've got 2 minutes left, and I've been locked out of the Google document for the questions. But I think there was a similar question to the one I asked last, is about scaling up these projects to kind of get mainstream sort of land. Let me see if I can get back into the So how can such approaches, which you've all taken in your own unique ways, how can they be scaled to make tangible differences to the mainstream land ownership And I guess mainstream might include things that are supposedly public, but also other kind of land uses. So does anyone want to speak to that? About scaling up?
Well, I'll start. I'm speaking English, maybe I get the advantage. A massive thing for us in this country would be to have a social investment environment that was as favourable as it was in France. I think it's interesting the amount of money that France has, that Terre de Liens has raised, 90 million, and it's really a lot more difficult for us because we don't have such a supportive financial environment for people investing in this kind of thing. But there's not one that's going to encourage big landowners and things with their land, and system that people who want to set up local versions of this but just don't know where to get started, give them that information.
Okay.
So, and it needs, across the board, it needs a cultural recognition of the importance of this, which is slowly growing. But I think we can all work to try and talk to people in our local area to try and speed up that change of mind and mindset.
Absolutely, and I think it's all those things wedded: ecology, capital, and culture. I want to say huge thank you to all our panelists. I really do believe that you guys are revolutionary. This is a quiet revolution. The work that you're doing is amazing, and I really value it, and I'm sure many people do. And I hope that wider society will come to learn that it's so much more important than it currently is. So yeah, please, a huge thank you to you all, and thank you to our interpreters, or our interpreter Grigor, and thanks to Vince, the man behind Zoom, making it all happen. So yeah, go well and enjoy the rest of the Oxford Real Farming Conference online. Thank you very much. Merci.